All right, let's keep going. So we've just created the waist. We now need to create the hips. The hips are also a cone, but it's going to be upside down from the torso cone. And the hips are literally going to go from where the waist ended until the middle mark of our figure. Of course, everybody's got different hips. I'm just going to go sort of based on what the mannequin looks like. All right. There are the hips. All right, we're ready to move on now to the hip joints. So the hip joints are what allows us to rotate our legs. The hip joints are sphere-ish cylinders, and they look something like this. All right, now it's important to know, as I mentioned in the last video, that the entire lower half of the body, from the top of the hip joints all the way to the bottom of the feet, is half of the human figure. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create now, we've got our hip joints, we're going to create the upper portion of the leg, and I'm going to have that go right up until about halfway down the lower portion of the body, because that's where our knee joints are going to be. So you can even put the knee joints in now, just so you know where the upper portion of the leg should stop. And we're connecting those two spheres with cylinders. Okay, we're going to continue down here. This is the lower part of our leg. And once we get just about past that last little section with 1 inch or 1 head left, we can now start working on the ankle joints, which are also spheres. And then you can start creating some sort of foot. The foot is usually a triangle when we draw it here. Might make the ankle joint a little bigger so my triangle can be a little smaller. Of course, it depends on which direction you're facing. So right now this guy's got his legs sort of facing outwards like a ballerina. If I wanted them to just be facing forwards, I could get rid of that little triangle there and have it be more like half of a sphere. All right, let's work on the arms. So the torso is automatically going to get wider as soon as we add those shoulder joints. So your shoulder joint, again, is a sphere. So you can add 1 on each corner of your torso. And your elbow is actually at the same line as your waist. So I would suggest finding your waist there and then making yourself your elbow joint, just so you know you have a little bit of direction on where to go. And then all you need to do is connect the shoulder joint to the elbow joint with a cylinder. Okay, then we're going to move on. The wrist joint is actually just below the hips. It's about at the same height as the hip joints. So you can go ahead and you can add those spheres and then connect them with cylinders. And then of course attached to our wrists we have our hands. On our mannequin, it's kind of like a half cylinder again on its side. And there we have the basic proportions of the human body. Now if I want to, I could take my little guy over here and just make sure it lines up. So mine is a little bit thinner than this guy, and that's totally fine. All of these are going to look a little bit different. So as I'm looking at it, I can see I should be making my hip joints should be a little bit wider. And that would in turn make the thighs a little bit wider as well, so they would look more realistic.